The condition of alienation, of being asleep, of being unconscious, of being out of one's mind, is the condition of the normal man. Society highly values its normal man. It educates children to lose themselves and to become absurd, and thus to be normal. Going to school is something everybody will do. And while the majority of the population will tell you that school is good, school prepares you for life. And while they're not totally wrong, it does prepare you for life, but only a life where you obey others, take orders, void of any thinking for yourself, and any type of creativity. Or, as American anthropologist Jules Henry puts it, the function of high school then is not so much to communicate knowledge as to oblige children finally to accept the grading system as a measure of their inner excellence. And a function of the self-destructive process in American children is to make them willing to accept not their own, but a variety of other standards like a grading system for measuring themselves. It is thus apparent that the way American culture is now integrated, it would fall apart if it did not endanger feelings of inferiority and worthlessness. Enforced by laws, at the age of 6, everyone in modern population will attend some sort of schooling until they are at least 16. In these years, you will be taught the basics of language, math, science, social studies, along with electives which differ from school to school. Unfortunately though, as psychiatrist Hermann Immigus discovered in the 1880s, without any reinforcement or connection to prior knowledge, the information is quickly forgotten, roughly 56% in 1 hour, 66% after a day, and 75% after 6 days. So in summary, you'll probably forget most of it. However, as Jules Henry has said, the modern school system is not there to communicate knowledge, but to create obedient people, to work of people of wealth and power. The structure of American schooling 20th century style began in 1806 when Napoleon's amateur soldiers beat the professional soldiers of Persia at the Battle of Jena. When your business is selling soldiers, losing a battle like that is serious. Almost immediately afterwards, a German philosopher named Fichte delivered his famous address to the German nation, which became one of the most influential documents in modern history. In effect, he told the Persian people that the party was over, that the nation would have to shape up through a new utopia institution of forced schooling in which everyone would learn to take orders. So the world got compulsory schooling at the end of a state bayonet for the first time in human history. Modernized forced schooling started in Persia in 1819 with a clear vision of what centralized schools should deliver. 1. Obedient soldiers to the army. 2. Obedient workers to the mines. 3. Well-subordinated civil servants to government. 4. Well-subordinate clerks to industry. 5. Citizens who thought alike about major issues. This method of school would be reinforced during the industrial period, in which factory owners required a docile, agreeable workers who would show up on time and do what their managers told them, and decided that sitting children in a classroom all day with a teacher was good training for that. Why? Because before school was universal, the idea that men had to show up and take orders from a boss, someone they were not even related to, was demeaning and emasculating. This method of schooling is still in effect today and is not likely to change in the near future, as big corporations and businesses now more than ever need people to work for them and simply do a good job without ever thinking about why they are working the job other than the thought of I want or need money. And while most corporations will tell you they want you to be creative and come up with new ideas and better understand yourself, they know this is highly unlikely and it is a cheap lie. Because as American philosopher Noam Chomsky stated, the whole education and professional training system is a very elaborate filter in which just weeds out people who are too independent and who think for themselves and don't know how to be submissive, and so on, because they are dysfunctional to the institutions. Unfortunately, we are all forced through this system, and many of us will not ever realize the twisted ways of the school system. And while on the outside there will be many movements and the appearance of changes, as long as the government, corporations and institutions need obedient, steady good workers who lack the power to think for themselves and lack any kind of meaningful creativity, the modern school system at its core will likely go unchanged. However, it's not all bad. Through the last 200 years this system has been in place, a few people, and recently myself, have figured out how to break the school system down and use it to your advantage. And while you're probably sitting there waiting for me to tell you some grand secret I've learned, unfortunately, it'd only be a waste of time, because as Irish poet Oscar Wilde once said, education is an admirable thing, but it is well to remember from time to time that nothing that is worth knowing can be taught.